Hi there, it's Ed Moses and welcome to Project Mindset. You know, when I created Project Mindset, the whole idea was to find a better way of doing things. And since I'm into, the business ideals, finding a better way to create wealth and prosperity in my life was one of the biggest things I wanted to have answers for. And finding a better way of doing it is exactly what I came across. And that's what I'm trying to share with you through Project Mindset. But in today's particular, this video here, I want to share with you a book I just finished reading. It's called The God Code. And this book is by Gregg Braden. If you have ever heard of Gregg Braden, the dude's awesome. He takes the best of science because he comes from a science background, and he brings in spirituality, and basically he combines the two to explain how they work together. And because if you know anything about science, it's not exactly, there's certain things that can't be proved scientifically on a spiritual level, and on a spiritual level there's certain, vice versa. So, but anyway, this particular book, I just finished it today. It was such a good read. I actually had a lot of trouble putting it down because it was a very exciting book for me. Essentially, what Gregg wanted to kind of prove in this particular book was the fact that our DNA holds the name of God in it. And I know that sounds maybe like a crazy possibility, but he actually goes through this book and shows you how he came up with the evidence that he came up with, and it's actually quite amazing. If you take the elements, the main elements that the human body is made of, and that's hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen, and you take their atomic values, you take those atomic values and actually take it to the Hebrew alphabet / numerical value of how they use their alphabet, and you take those and you extract the atomic mass and those numbers and letters from the actual alphabet from the Hebrew. What you end up with, and this is quite amazing, is the name of the original or early name of God, Yahweh. And it's actually, it blew my mind when he showed how we come across all this. You really need to read the book to get the whole thing, because I'm just a student here learning this stuff. But it's quite amazing because, like, hydrogen has a mass of 1, nitrogen is 5, and oxygen is 6. So he takes these and he took it to the Hebrew letters. And basically, the first letter is Y, the fifth letter is H, and the sixth was a V. And comes up with Yahweh, and that was actually in the Sepher Yetzirah. I've probably just butchered that name, but it's a Jewish ancient text that came out years ago, explaining creation from a Jewish standpoint. And what he came up with is they used that name in that particular book, and quite amazing. And then as he goes further into the DNA, our body's DNA, there was something missing. He realized that something wasn't quite right, because Yahweh ends in an H. So you've got, for the God's name is YHVH. So if you take it another step further, man has a different element that God does not have, and that is carbon. And the reason we have carbon is because we're solid. We're actually, physical beings, whereas God is everything. So God is not a solid mass. God is everywhere. So, but what the point was, God is in us, and it's even many of the ancient texts will even say that the human body was a good home for the Spirit of God. And and I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm not, I never really went to church or anything like that. It's not my thing. I believe spiritual on a spiritual level, that's a personal thing. So, but I'll tell you, since I've read Gregg's books, I'm really coming to a different understanding of who I am, and and people in general, what they are really to this world, as to what, when I was growing up, what I thought, and completely have a different viewpoint, thanks to Gregg, from what I actually believed, or what I was told, more or less, because you're told things, and people over the years have always speculated what they felt or were told themselves that we as humans really are. And it also goes back to, if you look at a lot of these ancient texts, what you'll get is a lot of people say, oh, well, they didn't have the technology back then, how could they know anything? They couldn't have known this stuff. But there are so many hidden messages in the ancient texts. Now, if you look at like the modern Christian Bible, there's a lot of stuff was not put in there that should have been put in there, that explained a lot more of who and what we are. That you start to realize that that even though they didn't have the technology, they knew something. There was something they knew. How did they know this stuff? Probably it was passed on over the years, from family to family, or on a spiritual level, what have you. And it was lost after so many years, because the information was actually taken and hidden from us, because some reason nobody wanted, the religion didn't want us to know any of this information. But and then in closing, what Gregg really, what I thought was really interesting is, what can we learn from the past to help us with the present and the future? And I thought it was amazing, because if you look at like a lot of the different wars and conflicts over the years, things that have happened, a lot of things happen. Not just, you want to look at things as, oh, these people were evil, that that did what they did because they killed so many people. But a lot of this is actually happening because people wanted to help their own people. It wasn't. I guess the original feeling wasn't actually malicious in the sense of what they wanted to do. It seems that way when you're the one being attacked, of course. But if you look, from the home ground point of view, it's like, okay, this, maybe you can relate to it at that point. So, a lot of wars and battles and stuff, conflicts, they find is, it's a lot of them are because of skin color, country borders, and religion, of course. There's been a lot of religious wars, and everybody, they did it not because they were hateful, but because they wanted to do good for themselves, or good for their own people. So, quite an interesting thing. And in closing with the book, what I thought was really cool was the fact that he stated that people are becoming more open to the idea that they know that if we stay in the direction that the 20th century had gone in, because the 20th century was actually the most murderous century of all times. There has been millions of people, or maybe even millions of people, that were actually killed for no good reasons, over from just hate crimes to like what happened in World War II with the Jews, the slaves, with early American culture, and just the Indian slaughters, just terrible things that have happened over the years. And this is the most last century was the most murderous century of all times. And because people are waking up, they're saying, this, if we keep in this direction, we're going to kill our whole civilization eventually. Eventually that's where it's going, and that's what's happened too. There's, he uncovered that there was some civilizations like in the Indian area that actually, for some reason, had messed with some sort of, I'm trying to remember what type of chemical that was, but they blew themselves up, and you know, it's just amazing. You know, the technology, because of the technology that keeps coming in, that we utilize, you know, we're actually on a path to destroying ourselves. But we feel that people are waking up and understanding that this is not really the direction that most of us want to go. And when more of us start waking up to see that this is actually not our direction, a lot of this is going to stop, and we're going to end up in a better place than what we did in the 20th century and in, you know, time beyond that. So, but you know, I thought it was a good read. I would recommend this book to anyone. If you know, read with an open mind, you'd be really surprised what he's come up with here. It's amazing. Awesome book. So, but anyway, I'm Ed Moses with Project Mindset, and you know, when I created this Project Mindset, my idea was to inspire people to find a better way to do things. And you know, how you use that inspiration, it's really up to you. But I can tell you one thing I know, is that Project Mindset is just a better way. So I will see you in the next video. I appreciate you. Thanks now. Bye.